unusual about Matt Fowles is not so much that he was once a lawyer who became a winemaker. That's almost common. What intrigued me about Matt is his sense of humor, evidenced in the names of his wines, such as Ladies Who Shoot Their Lunch, as well as his own passion for the land, from farming grapes to hunting game. He's the owner of Fowles Wines in the cool climate region of Australia's Strathbogie Ranges, and he joins me today. Welcome, Matt.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks, Matt, but I expected you to have a rifle slung over your shoulder. Are you a redneck?
No, absolutely not. I might look like one, but no, we only hunt to eat.
Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about that because it will have the tie-in with wine soon. But how did you develop a passion for hunting?
So where we live is actually quite isolated. We're about an hour and a half north of Melbourne in Victoria, and it takes me about half an hour to drive to our supermarket. And I decided that it'd be easier to be out on the land and farming game, or hunting for game. And the other thing is, I like to understand where my food and wine comes from, and I want to know that it's without preservatives and the like. So hunting your meat from the wild is the best way of ensuring that, in my view, and that's what I do.
Huh, excellent. And what is it that you like most about being in the wild, and is there any association with being in the vineyard?
Well, I think, like most winemakers, I presume, being outdoors and with nature is such an important part of what you do, and it's hardwired into people. It's something I'm very passionate about. I feel at ease outdoors and in nature, so that's what I do. I just love it, and this is an extension of the vineyard and the winery and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's just a nice way to live.
Terrific. I've read some interesting comments you've made in the past. What do you think has happened to the flavors of meat with mass production? Because we're going to talk about how that affects pairing it with wine as well. And maybe you can compare that to the taste of meat that is hunted wild.
The flavours in commercially reared meat are a bit milder. The animals are killed younger. They're produced in a different way, almost for those qualities. And because of the way they're raised quickly. It's a bit like cool climate grapes. Cool climate grapes, because of the climate, have time to develop flavour and accumulate flavour, and so does game, because it's indeterminate of age by nature. So as time goes by, these animals become more intense, and the more conventional example might be something like lamb. Spring lamb versus older mutton. Generally muttons have much more intense flavour, and so is game. And then what we do is we change the way we make the wine to make sure that it stands up aromatically to the intensity of game, but then it has a texture that doesn't overwhelm your palate when you're eating game and wild meat. It's very lean by nature and has this density to it, and it's very important that we don't then overload the palate with overly extracted or tannic wines.
So you're concentrating the flavors to meet those wild gamey flavors, but still keeping the elegance or whatever, the finesse. Is that how you kind of go about pairing?
The key thing about concentration or intensity for me in our wines is aromatics. So we're actually looking for ways that we can get aromatic wins. Now, the Strathbogie Ranges, where we're from, it's a region that is inclined that way. But then there are lots of things we can do in the winemaking that promote aroma as well. So for me, it's about aromatic intensity that stands up to game, and then these textural elements. We're actually looking for a fine and supple palate that doesn't overwork your palate.
Right. Okay. And now, Ladies Who Shoot Their Lunch. Just before we jump into that really fun name, does the wild ferment for one of the wines help with some of the aspects, the character that you're talking about?
Yeah, the wild ferment's a funny one. It's probably the attribute that least it supports it, but it has these lovely layers, and there's some textural things that come through wild ferment that we like in this context. And in the case of the Chardonnay that we're releasing here in Canada later this year, we actually blend a little bit of Viognier, which helps both with texture but also that aromatic quality.
Okay, so what does wild ferment give to the wine, like flavor-wise?
Well, the best way I can describe it is funk. It's layers of complexity. I mean, Chardonnay is a beautiful grape in that it can take winemaking, if you like. You know, these things that we do to it, it automatically shoulders, I guess. It's a great grape for layering flavour into. And wild ferment, apart from it being a natural way of making wine, does give these funky layers or layers of complexity that are really hard to pinpoint, but just add lovely dimensions to the wine. And it's not 100% wild ferment; it's just got layers of it. So there's still all these other things we're doing to it, but it helps us build complexity and modify texture and so on.
Right, and you say funky. I've always heard that associated with kind of a fault or something strange going on with the wine. What do you mean by funky? Is there any other way to put it?
Well, I'd say it's complexity. It's not something you can easily put your finger on. It's complex and so difficult to describe or define by nature, I guess. But it's adds these layers of interest and that just are very appealing.
Terrific. Okay, let's see now. Did you come up with this name, Ladies Who Shoot Their Lunch?
Yeah, so Ladies Who Shoot Their Lunch, it was sort of an idea that was spurred on by a magazine article, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, it was Ladies Who Shoot Their Lunch, and my view is that if you're a lady who lunches in all your finery, as I imagine you are, Natalie, then I think it's the understanding where your food and wine comes from is so important that I'd encourage everyone to go out there and understand the source. And if in the case of meat, that means hunting. Awesome.
Did you ever think about sending a bottle to Sarah Palin?
Yeah, actually, a number of people have recommended I do that, but I haven't to date. We'll see. We've just kicked off in the US, so perhaps that opportunity will present.
I think it'd be a beautiful media opportunity. Are there any other women who come to mind when you think of any women of inspiration? When you think of ladies who shoot their lunch?
In truth, not many. My wife would be one, but then. Look, it's more about this idea of provenance. That's probably the key thing we're working on there, and it's just a nice way to dress it up, I guess.
Okay. Does she like to hunt with you, by the way?
Yeah, she will. Yeah, absolutely. She loves
right.
She loves the outdoors, and actually, I just bought her a 20 gauge shotgun, which sounds horrifying, but it's a nice little manageable gun to work with.
Better than a frying pan. Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, Matt, we're going to come back and taste this wine and talk about Stone Dwellers, your other wine. But thank you for introducing us to this one, and I look forward to continuing our chat. Thank you.
Terrific.